When your reach exceeds your grasp, but only just a little bit, you end up with Destroyer, a mostly forgotten slasher movie of the genre's later period that's definitely better than most of its peers, but not necessarily, like, much better. Cold opening in a particularly grim-looking prison's death row, where something seems just a bit stylistically off already, we're introduced to Lyle Alzado as a hulked-up, super-strong serial killer, Ivan Moser, sentenced to be electrocuted for, well, kinda all the things.
Ivan Moser, you've been sentenced to die in the electric chair for the rape and murder of 23 men, women, and children. You having last statements?
24.
Try this son of a bitch.
But seemingly more concerned with watching his favorite game show. There's some foreshadowing involved there, but mostly it's just because Ivan is really, really strong and the chair is not actually enough to kill him.
Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, sins.
I should probably mention up front that at the time, this was meant as a bit of celebrity stunt casting. Alzado was a by then retired NFL defensive end who, in his days as a player for the Denver Broncos, Cleveland Browns, and LA Raiders, was one of American professional football's last great infamous berserkers on the field, known for an aggressive and violent playstyle that not only overcame but simply intimidated his opponents, earning him the nicknames Darth Raider and 3 Mile Lyle.
He's a face right out of cave drawings. You imagine John the Baptist looking like this, Joshua, the Old Testament prophets.
I'm a violent person. I play a violent game. And anybody who tells me that they go out there to have fun playing football, they're a liar. Because this game isn't fun. This game is a war.
He sees himself surrounded by evil. He howls at injustice. He's not a defensive end, he's an archangel.
He's one of the few men in the NFL who has achieved the destruction of a training machine.
I broke it.
Well, by most accounts, Alzado left all his aggression on the field and was a perfectly decent guy otherwise. His reputation as a raging man-beast followed him in the post-NFL popular culture, which he parlayed into a minor acting career in roles like this, Destroyer probably being the one that took the fullest advantage of his physicality and persona. Anyway, it turns out it was just a nightmare.
Pretty pictures and bitch.
Specifically, the nightmare of Deborah Foreman, here playing a stunt woman working on a currently shooting movie written by her boyfriend, Clayton Romer. Why is she having nightmares about a serial killer who, it turns out, was executed several years ago? Because the project is a cheesy women in prison movie being shot in the now condemned actual self-same prison where Ivan Moser was executed. And since the writer doesn't necessarily have much to do on a movie set hour to hour, our heroine's boyfriend has opted to occupy his time researching the suspicious prison riot that supposedly closed the place down to begin with, which may or may not have been touched off by dirty secrets about abusive administration and or had something to do with the circumstances of Ivan Moser's execution. Rounding out the victim pool are a snobby lead actress Foreman is doubling for, a spaced out weirdo special effects technician because there's really only like a handful of movies about making movies observational humor jokes, and that's one of them, a corrupt southern warden who's having second thoughts about letting an entire film crew set up shop in his obvious crime scene.
I don't want anybody questioning my men about it. Understand?
We understand, Warden.
Mr. Harris, do you understand?
Yes, I understand.
I don't want to have to come back out here. Better luck on your next picture, Miss Fox.
A creepy old man security guard, way too obviously relieved that there's no Velma Dinkley in the bunch to figure this whole thing out, and Psycho's Anthony Perkins, clearly having a lot of fun doing a meta bit as a director who clearly knows he's above this material but is making the effort anyway.
Sharon, darling, can you in all honesty call that running?
Oh, I don't have to jump. I get paid to act.
Oh, that's what you call that.
All right, roll it!
Jesus, since Crawford and Davis and Baby Jane. Who?
Frick.
Brilliant. We should be getting this on film.
Man, they really should have let this guy do more comedy.
Pretend that you've just broken a nail. Or that Playboy just discovered some porno films from early in your career, but, like, give it something, okay?
Anyway, since you'd be pretty disappointed were this not the case, yes, Ivan Moser, either as a specter, simply too hard to kill revenant, or something else in between, is still haunting the shadows of the prison, has kind of a poorly developed Phantom of the Opera thing happening for Foreman, and otherwise just starts picking off the cast, crew, and other assorted folks at regular intervals in suitably brutish, occasionally ironic fashion. Jackhammer weapon prominently displayed on the poster art, really actually only getting deployed in one scene. The noteworthy feature of Moser as a slasher villain is clearly that he doesn't really slash anybody. He's mostly a big, absurdly strong dude who just beats the shit out of you and then finishes you off either with brute strength or whatever tool is on hand. That's probably part of why Destroya didn't catch on like other would-be franchise starters of its type. 80s and 90s horror loved its stabbing and slicing novelty edge weapons, and Ivan Moser is much more of a deliberate feeling throwback to the earlier days of the stalker killer, where the fear was just being manhandled or strangled to death by a big mindless brute like the Frankenstein monster, the Mummy, or Rondo Hatton's Creeper.
Let's go!
Instead, Destroyer is content to rely on a grab bag of movie set stuff and prison stuff for its theming, along with Alzado's not unsubstantial angry guy charisma to get the job done. And while you don't end up remembering much about the movie beyond the kills and Perkins zingers, I kind of feel like if they'd made more installments with this killer, there were places to take it.
What happened to your uniform?
It's not a uniform. It's a disguise.
Disguise from who? Hey, a disguise from who?
You.
Unfortunately, that wouldn't be in the cards. While still an intimidating physical presence in this film, his other roles and various commercial endorsements he'd appeared in at the time, Alzado was not in peak physical health towards the end of the 1980s, largely believed to be related to steroid use during his NFL days. In fact, he was one of the most prominent American sports figures to publicly admit to using anabolic steroids throughout his career, a practice now known to have been rampant in professional athletics in the 60s and 70s, when the issue scandalously exploded in the 90s. By that point, Alzado was battling advanced brain cancer, at which he always contended was brought on or exacerbated by steroid. Many medical experts would disagree over the years, and growth hormone. He passed away in 1992, 4 years after making Destroyer. He was only 43 years old. In 2014, the NFL Films documentary Lyle Alzado, A Football Life, included interviews with teammates and family members who reaffirmed his reputation as a gentle giant off the field, who'd raised millions for children's charities in particular during his downtime, with his brother and sister attributing both those actions, his need to become a physical powerhouse and play combatively, stemming all from a brutal childhood under their own alcoholic father. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to end that on a down note. That's just kind of what happened in this guy's life, unfortunately. In any case, Destroyer isn't exactly as hard to see as it was for a bit, and it's unique enough to be novel, and certainly a tribute to what could have been a very interesting horror lead career for this person. So definitely worth checking out. This was our darker movie for this year. Next week, a much more colorful but also much more bizarre entry, which I'm very excited to show you.